there's an obvious advantage in being attractive in society. Maybe it always has been an advantage, but nowadays, with the growth that we have in social media, in our relationships, the place of that, even in work and sales and finding a job and getting contracts and closing deals, even sometimes as far as like being able to get the outcomes we want, whether it is in services, in negotiations, whatever, it works in a way where it's almost linked with charisma, right? And so it's not even something necessarily linked with the physical appearance, but it's also a representation that we use to calibrate um, people, how people are pre-approved, right? They call it pre-approved in a way, almost like we do credit, but with social realms. There is also something to be said about how it can be sort of a way in which people judge competence in certain areas by how someone presents themselves, right? The haircut, the physical appearance, the way people dress, but that's not the subject of today's video. Today's video is the one thing you could work on today to actually create a significant difference in what you can do to become more attractive um, fundamentally, right? Because if you look at attractiveness, almost like sales, right? In sales, there is this thing where there is a product, and the product is the thing which you sell to somebody else, right? The seller of this product, the most competent sellers, typically know the most about said product. The more they know about the product, the easier, or the more conveying, with more, confidence will they be able to express whatever point they have about said product. And then there is the marketing of this product. So this person, let's say you're selling roofing, they will know, what type of shingles do they have, when can they do the work, how much is the price, how does the price change, etc., etc. Here, when it comes to attractiveness, the product is yourself. You are the product. And so the natural question that arises from there is that you know about how much do we know about ourselves, and how do we carry that with us through life, right? Because if we talk with one roofing company, for example, they will talk, they will explain to you about their services, not somebody else's. They will talk about their policies, not somebody else's. The same with us. When you meet someone, the people that are the most that have the most gravitation around them, right? The most charisma are the people that are the most comfortable with themselves. And the opposite is also true, that the less people seem to know about themselves, the more comfortable they seem to are with themselves. And so, that being said, around people. And so this is the exercise here, is to have a sit down with ourselves, have a time that we spend to actually get into this idea of addressing the basic questions as to who we are. What is it that we believe? You know, what is it that we do? Why do we do the things that we do? And the examples for this are infinite. You probably have you probably met people that say in the gym, for example, and or maybe even yourself. They work out, but then they don't seem to stick to any sort of diet. They don't seem to stick to any type of routine. And it's almost like their objectives change. They seem to change based on who is around, or how they feel and stuff like that. And so there's not really a sort of dedication, to one way of being. Where this becomes an issue is that it is more difficult for people to trust the type of person when you extrapolate that habit on other areas of life. The same thing with the product, right? If you go to this roofing company again and you ask the seller about something, and they keep telling you something, and then they realize, oh, no, like, it's this. Yeah, no, we have a 30-day warranty. Oh, no, it's a 2-year warranty. Oh, no, it's a 20-year warranty. now you question the person, and you feel less comfortable dealing with them. You feel less comfortable trusting them. And that is the one of the key aspects of this, is that one of the main ways to that is related to this whole thing: attractiveness, sales, comfortability with the product, comfortability with ourselves, and the trust that you get to earn from the people. And that can apply to everything. It can apply to girls, for example, right? You find yourself wanting to basically develop relationship with girls, or even approach girls. You know, this is a big thing. A lot of people struggle to even approach girls, what to say, how to say it, blah blah blah, and that is a whole, you know, sphere of itself. And it's not necessarily for that purpose that you would want to build build attractiveness, but it's also for all the other areas that it can be implemented. But the idea of girls is that if you were comfortable with yourself more, right, and you realize that your knowledge of yourself will always overthrow the judgment that you might say or face from people, then the game totally changes. If you're comfortable with yourself enough and understand your intentions and understand what is it that you were trying to accomplish here, and that you know, what is it that you were doing, you realize that, well, you just wanted to do X, for example, talk to this girl, or were interested to get to know her, and whatever the reaction of that person is, you now no longer take it personal. The scary part about approaching strangers, whether it's in sales or in relationships, is the judgment that you face. And that is the scary part, is that maybe if this person sees me a certain way, damn, does that make me that? Does that make you a creep? If you approach a girl and she's like, you know, thrown off for some reason? No. Based on how you approach and the intentions that you did it with, to a certain extent. I need you to take it, you know, we're not talking about the extremes right now. We're just talking about regular approaches. Hey, how you doing? Blah blah. And for some reason, she gives you this idea, almost this feeling, like almost like you were, you know, for whatever reason, not to her liking. You're not likely to take that personal because you know yourself more than she does, right? You know what your actions were, you respect what you did, you had respect for the people, and boom, that's what it is. In sales is the same thing, right? You might, if anybody had experiences in sales, you know that rejection is part of the game. Rejection does not mean that you are bad at what you do. It just means for whatever reason, it could be that person maybe didn't have money for whatever it is that you're selling, and in that case, it's not personal to you, and you're not going to take it that way if you have the knowledge and the confidence on your capabilities more than the judgment that they express. And so it becomes a question of, it allows you to change your attention from things that you can't control, such as people's opinion and perspective, and push them and turn them towards yourself. And that's the exercise that we're discussing here, is to just sit with ourselves and write down beliefs that we have, or the way in which we look at the world, and how we decide to why do we do the activities that we do. Let's say you go to the gym. Well, for what purpose do I do this? And now that I have these reasons, I'm more free from other people's plans and objectives. If my goal is only to gain 10 pounds, but somebody else is cutting, for example, and trying to lose 10 pounds, I will feel a lot more comfortable to do my own thing that may not be the same as their thing. And in that exact moment, now there's a discrepancy that you're comfortable with, and that capability to be confident and to have comfort with yourself about what is it that you are doing, what is it that the actions that you're taking are aligned with yourself, and you're even willing to do them by yourself in most cases, or in all cases. creates that people will also feel comfortable enough to trust you as well, trust your character, your judgment, and that's what people really are looking for. People look for other people that they feel comfortable around, that they feel they can just rely on, and that they don't have to sort of second guess or, question or stuff like that, in a way. And I think that that message, that idea in itself sort of brings brings the point across pretty well. um the gain of these things, like we said, applies to various different areas of life, but the main point in this is that the point here is to not directly go to where other videos might send you, which is, there's the obvious, the hygiene, there's the dressing, um, there's all of these different things, the money, blah blah. But at the end of the day, all of those things are sort of only fluff around the center, right? And a center that can make or break the rest of the package, whatever it is. That is the glue that brings it together. And if you can just start at the root of the issue, which is to know ourselves, if we can start there, then we realize that everything else is sort of just comes after. Because if you, for example, do anything, but it's based on the idea or the perspective of somebody else, what does that really make you? And so that's it. That's the whole point here. It's the comprehensive way to approach attractiveness in a way which doesn't cost you money, doesn't require, it's not an easy fix, and maybe that is why it might not be as flashy, right? Or as satisfactory, like in the way of that instant gratification is. It requires work and the uncomfortable questions, but it does make it that when you are faced with questions coming from the outside, you will have answers. You'll have answers as to who you are. You'll have answers as to what do you believe, and you'll be willing to stand on them, whether or not it means to lose people, or maybe whether or not it means that they will agree or not, because you're comfortable enough to walk the path of your beliefs by yourself. I think we went around the subject pretty well. Let me know if you have any questions or comments about the thing. And I think it's a pretty interesting way to approach the subject. Let me know what type of questions you would ask yourself as far as getting to know yourself, and I can give you a few examples, such as, why do you train? Why do you like this job? What do you think is, how do you really feel about, for example, politics? How do you feel about cooking, right? What are your inspirations? What are your goals? Do you have any regrets? Do you have things that you would like to work on? All of those things, you don't necessarily have to share them with people. You don't have to respond to people's questions in a way which exposes all your weaknesses and all of the things that are personal to you. But by having the answers already, you'll be able to then respond in a way that not only protects your privacy, your comfort as far as you're willing to share, and it will also make it that you'll have more ease answering in a way that also keeps the attractiveness that you have in that scenario. And instead of coming across like, well, I think that you'll be prepared. And that's the whole point here, is to prepare for when the occasion arises. Thank you for watching.